I think the BA is not as valuable as it looks. I also think the PhD is not as valuable as it looks.
Oh, so you know how to hurt a guy.
I sort of feel it's a problem across the board.
You, of course, famously started the Teal Fellowship as a program, which, correct me if I'm wrong on this, 2005 is when student debt became non-dischargeable, even in bankruptcy.
The Bush 43 bankruptcy revision.
Right. Now, that
is... and so if you don't pay off your student loans, when you're 65, the government will garnish your Social Security wages to pay off your student debt.
Right. This is amazing that this exists in a modern society. And of course, well, so let me ask, am I right that you were attacking what was necessary to keep the college mythology going, and you were frightened that college might be enervating some of our sort of most dynamic minds? Were you responding?
Well, I think there are sort of a lot of different critiques one can have of the universities. I think the debt one is a very simple one. It's always dangerous to be burdened with too much debt. It sort of does limit your freedom of action, and it seems especially pernicious to do this super early in your career. And so if out of the gate you owe $100,000 and it's never clear you can get out of that hole, that's going to either demotivate you, or it's going to push you into maybe slightly higher paying, very uncreative professions of the sort that are probably less good at moving our whole society forwards. And so I think I think the whole thing is extraordinarily pernicious.
So, and
it was one of these things where when I started talking about this back in 2010, 2000 it was already like it was controversial, but it was not. It was like younger people all agreed with me.
The younger people did.
And it's a decade later. It's a lot crazier. It hasn't. We haven't yet completely won, but I think there are sort of more and more people who agree with us. I think at this point, the Gen X parents of college students tend to agree, whereas I would say the baby boomer parents, 15 years ago would not have agreed. The 2008 crisis was a big watershed in this too, where you could say the tracking debt, roughly made sense as long as all the tracked careers worked. And 2008 really blew up, consulting, banking, sort of a number of the more tracked professions got blown up. And so that was kind of a watershed.
Now, something that is, this is incredibly dangerous, but also therefore quite interesting. If you imagine that the baby boomers have, in some sense, in order to keep the structure of the university going, have loaded it up with administrators, have hiked the tuition much faster than even medical inflation, let alone general inflation. This becomes a crushing debt problem for people who are entering the system. I saw a recent article that said that the company that I think it's called Seeking Arrangements, which introduces older men and women with money to younger men and women with a need for money for some sort of ambiguous, hybridized dating, companionship, financial transfer. And the claim was that lots of students were using this supposed sugar daddying and sugar mommying, I don't know what the terminology is, in order to alleviate their debt burden. It's almost as if the baby boomers, in so creating a system, are subjecting their own children to things that are pushing them towards a gray area a few clicks before you get to honest prostitution.
No, I don't want to impute too much intentionality. How this happened. I think
it's somewhat emergent.
A lot of these, it was mostly emergent. Mostly these things people, that we had sort of somewhat cancerous. We don't distinguish real growth from cancerous growth, and then once the cancer sort of metastasizes at a certain size, you sort of somehow try to keep the whole thing going, and it doesn't make that much sense. But yes, look, I think one of the reasons, one of the challenges, and on our side, let's be a little bit more self-critical here on this, is that the question we always are confronted with, well, what is the alternative? How do you actually do something? And it is, it's not obvious what the individual alternatives are. On an individual level, if you get into a elite university, it probably still makes sense to go. It probably doesn't make sense to go to number 100 or something like this.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But so there is sort of a way it can still work individually, even if it does not work, for our country as a whole. And so there are sort of all these challenges in coming up with alternate tracks. Like I think in software, there's some degree to which people can be hired if they're just good at coding, and it's not quite as critical that they have a computer science degree. Can one do this in other careers, other fields? I would tend to think one could. It's been slow to happen.
Well, so you and I have been excited about a great number of things that have been taking place outside of the institutional system.